Good evening, everyone. Welcome, very warm welcome to the Simon Brooke Lecture 2025. Wonderful to see so many familiar faces from across the years here tonight with us. Colleagues from the sector, the department, housing agency, other partner organisations, and of course, Simon's friends and family. This lecture, as you know, was established to create Simon's enormous contribution to housing in Ireland and to continue the conversations that he helped to start. Over the past 4 years, we've explored youth housing, disability and inclusion, the intersection between domestic violence and housing, and international policy lessons. And each year, this event reminds us that housing isn't just about buildings, it's about the people behind the front door. This year's theme, age-friendly housing in Ireland and how housing policy can promote positive ageing, takes that spirit forward again. We'll look at what it means to grow older well in homes and communities that are connected, empowering, and rooted in dignity. Before we begin, just a very quick note on housekeeping. There are accessible toilets just out and to the right. Main fire exit is just straight out the way you came in there. I'd ask everybody to just gently check their phones, make sure they're all on silent. Okay. We'll give everybody a minute to panic frantically and check their phones. Great stuff. And then to formally open this evening's proceedings, I'm delighted to invite Clúid CEO Brian O'Gorman to the stage.
It's a bit tight up here. You're all very welcome and good evening to everybody. Simon Brooke, for those who don't know, led policy at Clúid for many years. Over a long career, he brought a supportive but critical perspective to homelessness, to social and affordable housing. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with Simon over a long number of years and benefit from his advice and guidance over that time. This evening's events, as Steve has said, allow us to revisit Simon's interests and thereby keep alive his guiding spirit. Most of us face the dilemma of right-sizing at some stage. For some of us, it's closer than we might like to admit. If we are fortunate to live long, we will reach an age when the house that we've enjoyed and has served us so well when raising a family or living part of a larger household is just too big for us and no longer appropriate. This discussion is timely as, amidst a housing shortage, there's a strong motivation to utilise all our bed spaces. Where this is possible and where people wish to right-size. However, right-sizing depends on there being appropriate homes available to right-size too. This evening we want to explore how right-sizing can enhance life experience. How right-sizing, rather than removing established community connections, can help us to maintain and sustain them. What residents in our age-friendly homes continue to tell us is that they want to maintain and enhance their social connections. They want to continue to contribute to and be part of civil society. This is no more than most of us wish throughout our lives. During this discussion, we want to understand how right-sizing can be a positive, life-affirming choice. Over the course of the last year on visits to our Clann homes, I heard the life stories of many residents, captured on film by artist Eileen Hyland and later recorded in her book, Reframing Aging Through Storytelling. Eileen, through her video stories, captures the importance of secure, affordable, high-quality and well-located homes. The residents who, through their rich lives, have given so much, but through circumstances did not have the means or good fortune, in a lot of cases, to secure their own home. This can be so easily arise following lives of service to older parents or relatives, or following work for long years in low-paid jobs, or through experiencing periods of illness. This can be the future for any one of us. Clann residents gave witness in their videos and in their life stories to the value, the peace of mind and the assurance that then imbues their lives following securing a Clann home. I believe that society needs to look at this issue entirely differently. Conor O'Toole and colleagues at the ESRI have highlighted that more households will retire in private rental accommodation into the future. This segment of the population belongs in secure accommodation, outside of the vagaries of the private rental sector. This issue needs to be looked at, as I said, in an entirely different way. Instead of assessing older adults as to whether they qualify for social housing support, rather such housing should be freely available at a certain age to those who need to avail of it. I'm aware of the various right-sizing schemes across the country which allow older people to sell their homes to their local authority or privately and subsequently move into age-friendly age-friendly accommodation provided by AHBs or local authorities, similar in ways to the Fair Deal scheme. This approach has many benefits, including increasing our stock of homes, which will always be available to our citizens, and allows people to age in the community where many older people prefer to be. In social housing, housing associations and local authorities continue to work together to facilitate right-sizing transfers within our housing stock. Bringing all this together, I look forward to the publication of a national right-sizing policy, as previously committed to in Housing for All. Many of us, as I do, live in older, long-settled neighbourhoods. We see the large, under-occupied homes. Everyone has known relatives who have gone through the ageing process and seen how nursing home care, while sometimes necessary, is not their preferred living arrangement. How do we get most value from our housing stock and plan for a better future? That's what this evening's discussion is all about. My hope is that we continue to search for ways to keep faith with our older citizens who have provided our country with so much and so much of the prosperity that we enjoy. I'm now going to hand you back to Steve. And just to let you know, Steve leads Clann, age-friendly housing service, and he will MC tonight's events and introduce the various speakers and moderate the discussions.
Thanks, Brian. I think, as always, that was pitch perfect and really set the tone for what we hope to achieve tonight, which is to not lose sight of the residents at the heart of every home and to make sure that story is a common theme that weaves throughout each of the presentations. As you alluded to, we're going to be looking at the age-friendly sector through a number of lenses this evening: design, funding, opportunity, but most importantly, that lived experience of the residents themselves. Before we do, though, I'm just going to give a brief overview, I suppose, of Clann's approach to age-friendly housing and how we see our role in building an Ireland where ageing is met with opportunity, dignity and respect. At Clann, our focus has always been on independent living. We provide what's classed as low-support accommodation, homes where people live fully but on their own terms, with access to signposting and where well-being supports are provided through our staff team. We don't provide the personal or medical care, and that's by design. Clann was originally established to meet what we felt at the time was a real gap in the housing sector, and we continue to believe that's the best fit for us at the moment. Because for most people that we come in contact with, aging well isn't about care, it's about choice. It's about staying active, it's about staying connected, and it's about staying recognised as a valued part of the community. Too often, I think, conversations about aging begin from a place of deficit rather than the potential surplus that older people provide in our communities. We think too much about what people lose when they age. At Clann, we start from a slightly different perspective, that position of strength and value. So when we begin to work in a community, we don't carry out so much of a needs assessment as we do carry out a strengths assessment. There'll be some areas that are less strong than others, but we kind of marry that together with an asset map as well that tries to solve those problems before they're even a problem that might be needing to be solved. So you're starting really proactive and intentionally. So we use appreciative inquiry to do this, a way of asking not what's wrong, but what's strong already. And it's identifying the skills, not just in the assets that we have around our schemes, but in the individuals, the people that live within our homes, the skills that they bring to that community themselves. Because that's what makes a neighbourhood thrive. We believe that older people aren't a group necessarily to be cared for. They're partners in creating stronger, more resilient communities. And I mentioned we promote independent living, but I've got to be honest, I sometimes struggle with that phrase. And that's because we talk an awful lot about maintaining independence in Ireland as if it's some sort of fixed state that we could lose. But the truth is, none of us are independent. You know? I might live independently because of the age I am, but take away my Google Maps and my Wi-Fi and I wouldn't have found here tonight. I'd be lost, quite literally. Yeah. But then with a different age, we see them as needing support. It's actually not support. It's just reliance on different systems. That's all that's happened. So the challenge isn't dependence. It's about how we design supports that preserve dignity and agency. That's why over time we've actually reduced the number of days our housing officers are on our schemes, because we found with the constant staff presence, while that was originally well-intentioned, it was signalling a dependency that wasn't necessarily there. I think sometimes loneliness is captured in the same way. We think of it framed as an individual issue, but in truth, it's a design issue, socially and spatially. I think when we fail to invest in social infrastructure in our neighbourhoods, people can become really disconnected even when they're living side by side. That's the piece we have to respond to. So at Clann, we try to address this by focusing on connection through doing, by bringing people together, shared actions that allow people to grow alongside one another, where conversation isn't forced. It just organically happens by people coming shoulder to shoulder. Connection grows naturally and from doing things together, because that's ultimately what makes life good. It's about shared purpose. So when we talk about age-friendly housing, we're actually talking about citizenship, I think, about recognizing older adults not as service users, but as active citizens with ongoing aspirations and contributions to make. The problem with ageism, I think, too often is that it's implicit. And what we have to do is we have to make the implicit explicit by challenging the assumptions we hear wherever we hear them. And ensuring the policy choices and services are designed in such a way that reflects the richness and the diversity in later life. Because aging isn't a problem to solve. It's just a chapter to be celebrated. I'm going to pass over now to Declan Gaffney, who's a National Technical Programme Manager with Age Friendly Ireland. And he's perhaps going to give us a bit more of that holistic national approach in the work that they're doing at the AGFI. Thanks, Dick.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, just to clarify, I'm not Anthony Holmes. Probably going by your brochure. Anthony unfortunately couldn't make it this evening. He sends his apologies, so hopefully I can do his presentation justice. I'm an engineer by background. I work across all 31 local authorities in Ireland in promoting age-friendly housing. I'm very passionate about, because the more and more I get involved in my role, the more stories I hear, and the impact it has on everybody. We all want to grow old. We all want to grow old in our communities. We all want to live, as Steve said, independent lives. So it matters to us all. And the presentation tonight that I'm going to give will hopefully showcase some of the work Age Friendly Ireland do, and some of the schemes that our local authorities across the country, working with our AHBs, private developers, have brought through. I suppose me personally, I've looked at this whole right-sizing debate quite passionately, and you hear the negative connotations of forcing people out of their own homes. I just want to set from the onset, no local authority or department would ever force anyone out of their own home. It's about choice, and it's about improving the life and the well-being of individuals within our state. And that's the ethos, I suppose, behind the Age Friendly programme. Just to throw up some figures, I suppose, to set the scene in terms of our ageing population, and Ireland isn't unique in this. We have a growing ageing population. By the time we hit 2050, the quantity of people over the age of 65 is going to significantly change. And indeed, over the age of 80, it's even going to change even further. And that's going to have huge demands, not just on housing, but our services. And if you look to the right of my slide, you will see the impact it has on our age dependency ratio. Presently in Ireland, we have 4 people of working age for every 1 person over 65. By the time we hit 2051, that's going to be 2 people for every 1 person. So, at the minute, you hear some commentary in terms of care provision in Ireland. That's going to have a serious impact. And, something like assistive technology, for example, is going to have to play a very important part in caring for us as a society. And we need to build that in. It's not just about bricks and mortar. I think it's a complex issue, but it encompasses a lot of different types of solutions to the problem we have. Just quickly on the age-friendly programme, we are affiliated to a global network. Ireland, as I say, isn't unique in this challenge. And the programme itself is derived around 8 domains, housing being one. But it's only part of the jigsaw. As an individual, and we want to live independent, we want to access, our services. We want to be socially connected, and transport plays a huge part on that. We want to remain active, in terms of our parks or public realms. How accessible are they for people, particularly people as we age, the prevalence of a disability will increase. So we have to factor that into our mindset, and we have to embrace universal design in how we design our built environment. The age-friendly journey has been a long one, and next year it will have commenced 20 years ago when the World Health Organization had a vision of an age-friendly world. And that story has grown over the years. The first programme was established in 2009, and it has grown incrementally and continues to grow, embedded in our local authorities, of which Meath County Council is the host service. But we have an existence in each of our 31 local authorities across the country, and we enact initiatives, as I said, across the 8 domains. The latest addition to our programme is the Healthy Age-Friendly Homes programme, which was launched nationally, and I'll now describe a little bit about the programme. The programme itself entails supporting people to age in place. So we have 44 coordinators nationally that visit people in both private and social housing, and they do a needs assessment on their needs to say age in place with independence and autonomy and feel part of that community. The assessment itself covers housing, obviously, but also health, technology, finance, climate, energy, and community. So an example of I suppose housing would be your housing adaptation grants that local authorities administer, but also rightsizing can come into that play as well. In terms of finance, they will look at utility bills, how are they managing and supporting themselves. So it's a full wraparound service that the coordinators provide to those individuals. As part of that needs assessment, they carry out obviously in housing, but they ask the question, does your house meet your needs? And that might be from an accessibility point of view, it might be from a maintenance point of view. And you can see there just some figures of the 14,800, just short of 9,500 people said yes, but just nearly 5,500 of those said no. And that could be as a result of, as I say, accessibility, maintenance. But the next question is asked is about, would you consider moving? And you can see there a good chunk, 14% of those that are asked that question say they would. And that's a significant quantity of people. What do the coordinators support the individual with? They provide them with advice in terms of maybe private rightsizing, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes, but also through our local authorities, housing transfers, and they sort of support the individuals around that. I just want to point out, I suppose, rightsizing through our local authorities are available in some local authorities. Not all local authorities have policies or procedures around that. And I know Brian has mentioned that there in terms of a national approach that hopefully will be implemented. Just one statistic I want to mention is about under-occupancy. And again, from our latest census, and this is something that Eurostat have pulled out, that in Ireland we have probably one of the worst the worst pieces of data on that. So in Ireland, we as classed as having the second highest percentage, 81% in Europe, of those over the age of 65 that live in under-occupied homes. And that's a home that has at least one bedroom free. Moving on to a bit of substance now in terms of research and case studies. This is one piece of research that was done back in 2019 in collaboration with H20 Ireland and South Dublin County Council. And it involved just over 530 individuals aged between 55 and 47. And this study was, to see awareness and perceptions and experience of older people in terms of right-sizing. 77% of those that were interviewed said that their homes were too large for their current needs. 90% occupied homes of 3 bedrooms or more. 80% said that their homes was too expensive to heat or maintain. And 44% said that they would be prepared to consider moving. And 93% said that they wanted a second bedroom in order for them to right-size. In terms of right-sizing policies, and I've said not all local authorities have policies, Cork City are one that have. And just to run through quickly what their policy is, the venture itself is completely voluntary. As I said, no one is forced to move. They offer a private and social right-sizing option. So someone that owns their home can apply to the local authority. You must be over the age of 60. Applicants must currently be living in a house of their size that's too great for their current or future needs. Applicants must be capable of independent living. They must be financially, the applicant must fall within the qualifying income limits for social housing supports. The applicant must agree to sell their property to the local authority. Applicants make a financial contribution to the local authority, a percentage of the value of their home. Applicants must be suitable for the needs of the property that applicants selling must be suitable for the needs of the local authority. And the applicant then receives a long life tenancy in a managed older person scheme. And an example of that is a recent scheme. I know the Housing Agency done a body of work on this, Springfield House. The scheme itself consists of 31 apartments and 4 bungalows. 14% of those that live in that scheme were private right-sizers. The remaining units then were used for social tenants that were on Cork City Council's tenancies. The advantages of it, I suppose, is multifaceted. Older people obviously get an age-friendly home to live into, but also the larger homes are repurposed in this instance for families, and they were repurposed in terms of their energy efficiency. So there is a lot in terms of the benefits of right-sizing that we maybe overlook. Another example is Limerick City and County Council. And not to go into any great detail, but just to emphasise, they have now gone through their 7th private right-sizing scheme in Limerick. And I know Clann have been heavily involved with the council down there in some of these schemes. But I just want to read a testimony to one of the residents there, Mary Clifford. And Mary says, "I want to express my gratitude. It is an unbelievable scheme, and I think personally that this should be in every single community. There are lots of people my age in very big homes that are too big for them and want to downsize and can't for different reasons. And this is a great opportunity for people to get and take that step. I was in my home 22 years, but it took one step at a time and eventually got there. I recommend it. I would recommend it to anyone. It is brilliant altogether." I know I've talked a lot about social housing provision, but I just want to highlight one scheme through the private sector in Navan, and this is a scheme that Glenveigh Properties are currently on the market. And I suppose AHBs and local authorities can't solve all of these problems, but I just wanted to highlight the private sector, and this is one scheme of 91 units in Navan, purpose-built for people over the age of 55, 2-bed properties that are on the market for private individuals to purchase. And just to highlight that, it is great to see these type of developments coming through from the private sector. Finally, I just want to mention one. I suppose I can't come here tonight without mentioning my employer, or I'll be sacked. But this is one recent development in Meath County Council that was occupied this year. It's 28 homes in Atboy in County Meath. Again, a lot of people right-sized into this property, and I have a little video to play now with some other stories. But again, huge benefits and lease of life to a lot of the people that have moved into these particular properties. So I'll give my voice a break and I'll play the video, and hopefully that sound comes up.
Yellowford Housing Estate in Athboy, County Meath is an age-friendly development comprising 28 units specifically designed for older residents. The homes feature universal design principles including wet rooms, low-maintenance landscaping and own door access to private outdoor spaces. Located on the Kildalkey Road, the estate is centrally positioned to ensure easy access to local amenities, public transport and services, promoting independence and social interaction for its residents. This short video captures the stories of the residents who recently moved into the estate.
I lived in rent accommodation in Athboy for over 20 years. I had got a termination order, so I put that up to the council, and this was coming on stream. I qualified, and lucky enough, I got a house.
I was living in flats, and there was the stairs involved. I was upstairs, and sure, I found it nearly impossible to try and get up and down. And you'd hear traffic going by every morning at 5 and 4 o'clock, lorries and hitting manholes and banging and clattering, whatever. Here, there's none of that. It's just lovely. You couldn't ask for better.
I was in an old cottage, but it was sort of damp and dreary, and like, it was hundreds of years old, and I couldn't heat it. And it was just money going down the drain every single week. It was on the main street. My car was not protected of other traffic and being vandalised and all that sort of thing, so I needed out.
We were very happy where we were, and we probably would have stayed where we were. The only thing that moved us was the fact that we had no stability we just did not know when we might have to move.
Well, we were in an apartment before, which never got any sunshine, so, you felt very confined in it once you were in it. So to be here and have the freedom of going out the front where it's covered in lovely flowers, or going out into your own back garden, or just doing whatever you want to do, makes it a big difference.
It's just your own space. It's lovely and clean and warm, and it's everything. I've my television and I've my fridge freezer, I've all my stuff, and my daughters come to visit me, and sure John up the road a bit, he comes into me, and everyone's lovely.
It is a very age-friendly community. Everything about it is easy access. We have no big steps. For the likes of me, I don't have to go climbing stairs or like I had in the house I was in last. The doors are good and wide, internal doors and outside doors. Like there's no kind of ups and downs and footpaths. They're easy to get up onto. You can see people on wheelchairs and that. They're very easy to get up and down.
I absolutely love my little house. I adore it. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I love where I'm in this cul-de-sac. It's beautiful. All my neighbours are lovely people. It's beautiful and spacious. I have a lovely hallway, a lovely sitting room, come dining room, come kitchen. Beautiful bathroom, walk-in shower, wet room. A beautiful big double bedroom. And lovely, lovely side entrance with a garden at the back. And actually a sun trap out the front of my house. I can't wait to come home to it and sit out front.
The house I was in, while it was grand and everything else, drafts are a terrible thing, especially like in the winter time. There's no drafts in that house.
It's a heat pump situation that heats the house. You don't have to buy coal, sticks, oil, nothing.
We are building houses that suit the ageing population.
If you're living in a big house, all you're using is probably your kitchen and your bedroom and your bathroom. So why not move into a place that is just right for you?
I think, going forward is the best thing, to get out of a big old rambling house and try to heat it and upkeep it. And, here is just fantastic.
I know you might have memories and you're thinking, you know, oh, I can't leave this and I can't leave, but you can, and you can make new memories and you can make new friends. So, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do.
It seems foolish to maintain it just because of the memories that maybe it holds for you. So sometimes, you know, it's worth considering the idea of downsizing.
I highly recommend it for any person in my age group. Now I'm coming up to 70 this year. It's an absolutely fantastic move to make.
It's a much more feasible concept to move into a purpose-built house. And as daunting as that may seem, sometimes it's better to be moving forward than feeling that you're standing still.
It's a new lease of life, to me anyway.
You can just get stuck somewhere and not want to do anything, but I think you should always move forward. Makes you feel younger.
It's just a piece of heaven.
My God, it's such a beautiful little estate. I love it.
This is my forever home now, and I absolutely love it.
All right, guys, thanks for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed that. Fortunately, I want to thank Tara and Fiona for their help and support. It's been a privilege to speak about this very important topic, and I'd like to thank Clúid for the opportunity. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Declan. I'm always struck whenever I hear you talk about the scale of work that's been done by Age Friendly. I think you've probably glossed over about 98% of the other things that you're actively involved in, and all those balls you're keeping in the air. And what always strikes me as well is that spirit of collaboration that you engage in everything, and it's collaboration underpins everything that Age Friendly are and are doing. But thank you most importantly for bringing that lived experience back in the voice of the resident. Just to reinforce, as Declan said, you know, rightsizing isn't a silver bullet. Nobody's suggesting it is. It's just one of a range of choices, I think, that can support people to live well where they want to be. It's about choice, not prescription, isn't it? I think that's the way we have to look at it. To continue the theme of the story, so I'm going to invite to the stage next Caroline Mahon. Caroline has been a Clúid resident for the last 20-something years. In fact, some people may know her first housing officer, Kath Cottier, was Caroline's first housing officer when she moved in with Clúid. And Caroline is currently rightsizing from a general needs property over to one of our age-friendly schemes in the Weir. So give Caroline a warm round of applause and we'll have a quick chat. Caroline, you might start by just having a chat about Joe. Joe really sort of right-sized
He did.
some time ago into the Weir. And
December 24. He took sick in December 22. He had brain surgery. He had epilepsy, which led him to have a cranioplastic. He now can't walk, so he had to go into a nursing home because his home wasn't ready. He was in Elm House where we lived, but because there was stairs and no lift, he couldn't go back there. So we had to try and push to get him his home because I didn't want him going into a nursing home and he wants to get home. So basically, it took 3 years from South Dublin County Council, who told us he was a medical priority in 23 and didn't give him his key until December 24. So he currently had to reside in a nursing home, where he's now transitioning from there now into his new home. So when he got his keys in December 24, he was over the moon. He still can't believe to this day when he comes home and sits in the house, that's actually his home. So for him to be able to come from that transition to where he was into a new home, nobody knows what's around the corner. And when I left the house that night in December 22, I certainly didn't think that it was going to be a life-changing experience. It just shows you how life quick can change. And from there on, he's improved all the time. The surgery has left him, he can't walk, so he's wheelchair bound. But to be able to bring him home and into the Weir and be able to just let him do his thing, and he's just amazed at his own home and he's grateful to have his home. And, you know, for me now to transition from there into Joe, it'll be such a difference, because that's all I've ever wanted, is to get him home. It's been a long road, but he's getting there, and he loves his lamb.
And it must give you an enormous sense of peace of mind, knowing that Joe is now where he is.
It does. And for me to be able to just go out and get him, bring him home, I can't have him officially home yet at the minute, because I need to have care on the outside, which is now going through the system. I just wish South Dublin would get a move on now with my transition, so I can have a fresh start this Christmas. And the Weir, I have to say, being age friendly, it's a great place. Like, for me, even coming in and out and just coming and going with Joe, and for what I see, there's a great little community in there, which where I'm living at the moment, we don't have that. So it's completely two separate. You can see the difference. And for anyone that would be thinking of downsizing, I think it's the right move to go. I can't wait to move in, because I've gotten to know most of the residents already from the block that he's in.
I was going to say, you might not fully have moved in yet, but you're already made yourself an integral part of community.
And they make you feel very important. And they even said to me, like, if there's ever an issue and you're stuck with Joe or anything like that, just give us a shout. But what I do like about the Weir is, because it's age friendly, there's exercise equipment in the courtyard area for people who mightn't have great mobility. It helps them strengthen up their mobility, and and there's the community that's in there, they arrange birthdays, anniversaries, and you don't even know, they just do it among themselves. And if it's someone's birthday, they get them all together, and it's in the little common room, and and they have bingo nights.
I'm not sure if I need to hear that, but yeah, I'm delighted it's happening. Right, you've spoken about the impact on the community as well, and I think there's something in that for you as well, because the pressure that you've spoken about previously of being that care for Joe, but for you to be able to engage with life again because of the community's already there. I mean, some of your neighbours that you recognise from Elms are already in.
Yeah, there's two of our neighbours that lived in the block where we were in Elms. They actually transitioned into the Weir. So it's like we reversed roles. We used to be on the middle floor, now they're on the top and we're on the bottom, but they're directly over us. And they were the people that were with me the night that Joe took sick. So that was a great help having them there. So it's good to have a familiar face from where we are in the Weir,
What is it about the community itself that feels different? We've spoken about that connection.
Yeah, I think it's just the age group. Like, I get on really well with the age group people. They're all different ages, but like, they all watch out for each other. You know what I mean? And it's just nice to have an experience, and they're just there for you. That's really it. They're just lovely people. Like, we're the group I'm up with in the other house, they're kind of a little younger. They're all getting into a younger group, where the ones that were originally there are no longer there. Some of them have passed on or whatever, but things are changing, and like we were talking here about people don't when they're going to get old, but it's not about when you get old. It's just about how things can happen so fast, so quickly. None of us knows what's around the corner.
Yeah. Would you have any advice for people who might be considering right sizing?
If you feel nervous about downsizing, I would recommend rethinking, and like you've seen from the videos, my experience of Joe downsizing and coming in, it's great because everything it's access, it's easy access for you, and it's just a good home. And anyone that would be thinking of downsizing, it would be the right thing to do. Because like I say, your house might be able to have adaptions, which where we lived wouldn't have been able to have adaptions, and like that, it was stairs and no lift. So I couldn't even bring Joe home for half an hour, anything like that. So that was where we led to coming into the Weir.
How's Joe feeling now? I know he's excited when he comes
Ecstatic.
home at the weekends. He can't wait to get
He
home.
can't wait. I still can see the day he got his keys in December 24, and when he got the key, the big smile on his face, and he still can't believe it's his home. And he's telling everyone now at the minute, I'm going home next week.
So you're putting expectations for Joe?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's been a long road, a very, very long road. I mean, it's been 4 years now since he's been able to get back into the home setting. It's slowly getting there, But like I say, if the council had been a little bit faster, he could have been in there way before, because they done vetting and everything that they shouldn't have done, and they just held up the process. And by telling me that, he's a medical priority, and then leaving him till 24 to wait for his key, if that's a priority, that'd help us.
Tell me, we've spoken about the design, the freedom that gives Joe when he does come home at the weekends compared to where he was in the general house before. What is it about the design of the weir itself that supports either that community or that contact with your neighbours?
It's very well done. It's very well built. The layout of it is lovely. And like that video just said, everything is there for you. You don't, like previously where we lived, we had open fires. You had to put your immersion on for your water and stuff. In the age-friendly buildings, you don't need any of that. You've already got your constant hot water. Everything is there for you. There's an app for your heating system. Everything is just easy access. And it's very well laid out, the wet room. Everything is just there. It's all ready for you to move in, really. You just put your own furniture in it and make it your home.
So it's about making it a home, isn't
It is. It's about making it a home, and it's going to be a fresh start, and I'm looking forward to the fresh start, I thought I'd never get to this day where I'd be able to get him home and look after him, and we're slowly getting there.
Yeah. And I have to ask you, because I'm hearing all sorts of wild rumours about trad parties going on till 2 o'clock in the morning. There's a trad band in the Mulligan across, but it seems that that community has already found the existing supports around the weir. There must be something in that for you, from moving from the Elms down to the weir. You didn't have to leave your own community with your support.
No, which is a huge bonus there, because we didn't want to have to move outside of Tala, because that's where we live. So from where we were, it's about 10 minutes down the road. So we wanted to keep in that community, simply because we have everything around us, friends, GP, everything that you do. So we wanted to keep it in that. So having the weir there when it was built, it was just amazing. And it's lovely to have the lake and the pond, and we're right facing that. And then it's just lovely to look out at in the mornings. It's a sun trap.
There's sun traps all over the.
I'm telling you, it's a sun trap.
Clann, thank you so much for coming in here tonight, because
I have to say as well, I've been with Clúid for 20 years, 21 years now. And if it wasn't for Clúid today, I don't know where I'd be living, because I was 13 years waiting on Mahon on South Dublin County Council's housing list. So when Clúid took me in and gave me a home, I was very grateful. And even my partner Joe, if he was here with me now, he'd be saying the same thing. So, and that was how me and Joe met then in Elms. We became friends, and it worked into a relationship. And, it's just mad how things happen. But I have to say, only for Clúid, they're a great housing organisation, and I couldn't fault them anyway. And I wanted to make sure we stayed with Clúid. That was the thing. So when the weir age-friendly came up, it was a bonus,
Well, thank you, because it's not easy to come up here and share your story this in front of so many people. You've done a wonderful job, Ed. We held a couple of interviews to camera earlier, and Caroline made an absolute show of us by wrapping ours in about 5 minutes. Every mark, did everything right, while the rest of us have been floundering around since. So you're a natural, but we really appreciate you coming, because I think your story reminds us that, home isn't the place. It's that feeling of connection and belonging and support.
And when you have that community as well, where people are welcoming you in, even from the day Joe got his key, everyone was just around him. Oh, I live in this block, and just to get to know people, and, everyone is there for you. But it's very secure, because even to when he was given the key from his housing officer, and she told him he had a bracelet he had to wear, even to know he has that was a huge relief for me. You just press that, and the emergency services are, which is huge.
Karen, thank you. As I say this time and time again, I think the most human thing we can do for one another is tell one another stories. I'm so appreciative of you sharing yours with me tonight.
Thank you for asking.
Because you've helped us understand what age-friendly actually means, moving it from the policy and the kind of lofty aspirational idea.
Well, like that, when Joe got sick, I was on to our housing officer at the time, and I was panicked, because I knew he was never going to be able to go back to stairs because of the seizures. So I was panicked. How is he going to have a home? How are we going to cope? I just thought you'd never be able to get home again.
Yeah.
But then for age friendly, the buildings to come around and be there, it's huge, you know. For somebody that can't walk to be able to have his home again and make him happy. Because he's only 56, so he's a young man.
He's a young man. He's a young man. Caroline, thank you. Give Caroline a round of applause. I'm delighted I don't have to follow Caroline there. Fortunately, Anne Conley, who will of that dubious honour, is as inspiring as Caroline is. Anne Conley is the co-founder of Co-Housing Ireland and Savvy Health, a specialist health and wellbeing service for people over the age of 50. Anne also runs her own consultancy practice and has set up a think tank on ageing, the Ageing Well Network. So with all that on your plate, I'm amazed that you managed to find time to come here tonight, but I'm delighted that you have. So Anne, please come to sit.
No pressure. And some of that CV was in the past. But anyway, it shows, I suppose, that for nearly 20 years now, next year, I've been actively involved in the whole area of ageing and positive ageing and age friendly. I would like to start by acknowledging the power of stories. As you say, there is nothing as powerful. So Declan, that's an amazing video. And Caroline, well done. It just brings home in a way that no data, no graphs, no nothing can actually make the point about profiling what exactly the need is. So I'd like to start by saying a big thank you to Clúid for including the topic of co-housing communities for people over 50 in this forum this evening, because I believe it has an important contribution to add to those of others into the future. So co-housing communities are very well established and very successful in countries such as Denmark, where they were pioneered in the late 60s. But they're also now flourishing in countries like the UK, the US, Germany, Canada, Holland. There is no such community here in Ireland yet, but we're ambitious about trying to make that happen. So, let me, I suppose, start with a very poor story in comparison with what's gone before. I first came across and experienced co-housing communities way back over a decade ago when I was in Quebec with my WHO Age-Friendly Cities hat on and was invited to go and visit a co-housing community. I was brought around, I saw very attractive, these were apartments, very attractive inside, very attractive landscape gardens, very attractive social amenities. But most importantly for me, the opportunity to talk to people who lived there. And when I asked the pertinent question, why did you choose to live here? It was one woman who has had a profound effect on me, because she said it was very simple. You see that house over there? I used to live there, and it drove me mad. Every evening, particularly in the summer, this crowd were outside. They were around a barbecue. They were having the beers, they were having the wine, they were having the fun. I was recently widowed. I was, to be honest, quite lonely. And I was asking myself, why on earth am I over there when I could be here? And I made the move. And I left there saying, do you know what? This actually is the way I want to live. And I would like to try and make it happen. Now, it's taken me a while, but about 2 years ago, we set up, myself, co-founder Kevin McCormack here, and Anna Dolan, who can't be here, we set up co-housing communities for people over 50 as a not-for-profit organisation. So I'm going to try and do what you should never do, which is present a very detailed, wordy slide, but it's just in case you do get copies of the slide, you could have it afterwards, because I think it's important to understand. So I'm going to try and define and describe what they are and in a sense differentiate them from all the other important options that are out there. So we describe them at the moment, this description has changed and will change again, as self-managing communities that offer affordable, well-designed, future-proofed homes and shared spaces and amenities that encourage social connection and mutual support. People are attracted to join them because of a sense of belonging, collaboration, and living among good neighbours. Members of the community make the key decisions about location, design, the range of amenities, governance, decision making, typically summarised in a community charter. So, in essence, I suppose, co-housing for over 50s offers what we describe as a balanced way of ageing well, combining the independence of your own home with, so combining independence with community, privacy with companionship, and modern decision with social responsibility. I can't hopefully companionship. Sorry about that. I haven't got it off by heart. So the question then is why? Why do we need, what problem would it solve if we were to create co-housing communities? And there's no doubt about it, the current housing crisis has exacerbated the relatively poor provision of choices for people over 50. And that 50 plus market, as it were, is one that's changing rapidly. 70,000 people a year in Ireland turn 50, and they join the 1.7 over that age. And that number is set to grow in the coming decades. So there are excellent options, as we know. Clúid, age-friendly housing, and many others provide really excellent options for those who need some level of supports that may vary and may be tailored for them. But I suppose we see a gap in provision that we think, if met, could make an important contribution at a number of levels. That gap is for people who are comparatively younger, still full, very healthy, independent, often still working. And I think what I'd like to do is briefly profile that group of people, because they effectively represent our members, two of whom are here today. Roisin Hayes there and Isolde, I can't over there, if you want to talk to them about why on earth they're joining a co-housing community. But the gap we see, the profile of that is they're typically, as I say, most of our members are late 50s, 60s, one or two like me, early 70s. What they have in common is they're planning ahead. They want to make a good housing choice now before having watched their parents do so. They have to make it in a crisis with less good outcomes. They typically also need to release some capital. They may or may not own their home, but they need to be able to fund a move. They often want to be able to fund their children's housing. And most importantly, they want to create a financial cushion for their later years against the vagaries of what may happen to them yet. So that group of people also typically are beginning to experience, not always, but many, some levels of loneliness. The children have left, often welcome at the time, but it leaves a gap. They've watched their parents go through those avoidable problems, and now the parents are gone too. So they recognize a level of loneliness in themselves, which, when being honest, know that that's actually going to get worse unless they do something about it. They've often leaving or have left work, which deprives them of a community of co-workers. So yes, there are lots of apartment blocks out there, standard apartment blocks. Yes, there are smaller homes. So that meets the needs for a house or a home. It doesn't actually meet their need for social community. And that's where we believe that co-housing offers an additional choice, which is an important one. So let me describe then briefly features and benefits. And Tara, you're in charge of making sure I don't go over too much. So the features and benefits of a co-housing community. So let me introduce firstly the picture drawn by one of our members, who's also co-founder and clearly an artist. And she presented our group, the first group that we have for the Dublin 6-8 area, with her picture of what she wants a co-housing community to look like. And that was a brilliant stimulation for a discussion about how others saw different features and different benefits. But essentially there's three things to look at. One is the house itself, as has been described both by Age Friendly Ireland and by Caroline, the features of a modern, energy-efficient home with the benefits of modern bathrooms, kitchens standard. Most of the houses, most of the homes are 1 or 2 bedrooms in co-housing communities. They also have shared indoor amenities. So that typically includes a large dining room and kitchen because people choose to cook and eat together. Not always, but there's normally a sort of weekly coming together with rooms sufficient then to be able to have your Pilates class, your art class, your whatever other class you want. Many of them offer studio accommodation for guests, which is a revenue source, but B, is a facility then that could be used by carers should they be needed at a later stage, because people are aiming to future-proof their lives as much as possible. Some include a little gym, some include meeting rooms for those who are still working. The main point is those shared amenities are decided on by the people who come together in that community. The outdoor facilities, which we've tried to show here, huge emphasis on very attractive landscape gardens where people can actually socialise outside. There'll always be shared seating, there'll always be a barbecue, there's normally a bicycle shed, there's sometimes a repair workshop, water features normal, and a lot of emphasis amongst the communities I visited on being able to grow some of your own vegetables, herbs, fruits, etc. And so essentially, though, the heart of it, the group decides. The benefits, and we know from research, though we do definitely need better longitudinal research about the impacts on people. But from the research available, we know the benefits for the individual are improved health and well-being outcomes. The sociability of living together improves active living, reduces loneliness, reduces stress, gives a sense of security that there's others you can rely on. And most importantly, their stress about not having to be or feeling a burden on their family. And that tends to be quite an important motive. The second benefit is that in the communities in which they're located, there's economic benefit because they bring spending power, and they also typically are volunteering into local community and voluntary organisations. And at a national level, there is an important benefit because these people are typically, not always, releasing larger family homes onto the market that are very badly needed and frequently upgraded from an energy perspective. But they also, by extending independence, improving health, to extend the period in which people can live without care and additional health supports. So there's a benefit at national level as well. So we once we're set. We've started the journey of making it happen in Ireland. So we can speak with some pain about the main barriers that we're experiencing. So as you can see, suitable sites, planning, affordability and financing. So I'll very briefly touch on them. But there is a paucity of sites, particularly in city areas where, as we know, people are open to moving but want to stay living in their own communities. So the way we're going about it is working with approaching the state actors who often are owners of large land banks and seeking to persuade them to a policy change that would prioritise releasing land for community-led housing for people over 50. We're also seeking to work with approved housing bodies where they may have a larger development in mind and would be willing to carve some of it out for a co-housing community. And lastly, we will work with the private sector developers because what we bring to the table are committed buyers and this financial security of that. So suitable sites is a headache, but we're actively, in our first group, we're actively pursuing one. Which brings us to the second problem. The one we're looking at, we've done a feasibility study. For us to apply for planning permission, The financial risk for us is between 200 and 250,000, and we believe it is at that upper end. And even if we put a planning application that is very carefully worded to reduce the likelihood of ultimate refusal, what we can't do is avoid the danger of it prolonging over many, many years. So we're looking to, we will seek to persuade a pilot approach to safeguarding that financial risk, and looking to, and part of that is by saying if local authorities and others can designate areas as suitable for community-led housing for people over 50, it reduces the number of commercial developers who can then go after that site. Affordability, I'm going to be very honest, is a really big issue for us. Many of our members don't own their own homes, or own homes that are of less value than the homes they want to move into. And as you know better than I do, there are problems with taking people off the housing list because you don't have choice. And we have to have people coming in committed to the community charter and way of living. So we are exploring a number of possible policy options to be able to push to policymakers later. So financing then, the last of the challenges, the barriers, central bank rules after the financial crisis limit lending on the loan to income ratio, which leaves many of our members, particularly those retired, unable to meet that criteria. However, I have to say we've had very positive meetings with the central bank on this topic, and they, without being overly optimistic or naive, they're very open to the idea of, they're actively reviewing this and open to the idea of a change. Our members need 4-year bridging finance for those who have a home, and we need to be able to get around that barrier. So, therefore, to wind up, as it were, I've talked a bit about co-housing, what it means, the benefits, etc. So who are we? Why have we come into existence? What can we do for you if this is of something of interest to you? So after about 1.5 years of Kevin and myself putting the design around it, we had a soft launch last March, got very nice media coverage, and as a result we now have 250 and growing members across the country. We started with the first group where there was most people located, happened to be my neighbourhood, but that's beside the point, in the Dublin 6 area. And that group is now actively working together. We've now from them got a group of committed buyers who prepared to put some small amounts of money on the table. So we're now able to start talking to developers to say, look, here we are, and we're a very attractive proposition for you. And then we're in active discussions about Cork and Westport, where we have people who say, I want to make it happen here. And where that happens and where we have sufficient members, we hope to be able to support that. So what we do, our value add, is very simple. One of the frightening statistics to emerge from where co-housing is popular in countries where the government don't support it is that it can take 10, 12, and in one case 15 years between the group first meeting and deciding they wanted to form a community and ultimately moving into their new homes. So our thinking is to fast track that with very specific expertise and supports. So we go out, we facilitate the group coming to the point they feel they are community. We help them find a site, get contractors, developers, secure finance. So we're in active discussion with a particular mortgage provider, and I think we'll work well with them. We hope we do some project management, and ultimately we have them sort of move in ready is the ambition. We're early stages in the journey, so I don't want to overly claim. But if anything in what I've said is of interest to you, you'd like to know more, there's the contact details. We'd love to hear from you. And my forgiveness for going over time. Or your forgiveness.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. You're absolutely forgiven because the content was so good. And I was struck as I was listening to you there. We've always lived in communities, haven't we? You know, it seems a bit more radical now just because we've kind of become sort of disconnected from one another. And I think we've almost become disconnected from the idea of community itself. But I think if innovation is that natural byproduct of collaboration, it's wonderful to see an innovation that is genuinely rooted in human connection. So thank you for that. Our final speaker this evening is someone who spent much of a career advocating for the voiceless and making sure that those voices are heard. Mervyn Taylor, former CEO and Executive Director of Sage Advocacy. Privileged to have you with us. Please come to the stage, please.
Thanks. Thank you indeed. I feel like a total imposter. Maybe I've come to the wrong event, because I've been very, these are things I really want to get involved in, but I'm stuck in another end of the dirty end of the business. But however, firstly, I think I have a clicker here. I want to thank Clúid for the opportunity to contribute to the Simon Brooke Lecture series. Lectures such as this provide a useful function. We can focus on a topic and take different perspectives. And I think it's really important that we take those different perspectives and hear them. The Sage Advocacy is the national advocacy service for older people, and it also supports survivors of an institutional abuse, and some will fit into no neat categories. Our perspective is informed by our experiences of engaging with clients about financial, housing, accommodation, and complex care transition issues. An ongoing concern is the lack of supports to enable people to live in their own home. And we have considerable experience in supporting people whose capacity is in question with regard to decision-making as to where they wish to live. And you'll see that reflected in this message. Our perspective is somewhat different. We see other aspects of downsizing. Our Postcards with an Edge series have been extremely effective in communicating what it is we do. Houses are assets which, like savings, pensions, land and other assets, can be taken under another's control. Greedy and predatory relatives and uncaring offspring may be a minority, but it is the role of Sage to promote and protect the rights and dignity of older people and to ensure that decisions are not made about people without their involvement. As our slogan goes, nothing about you without you. I want to focus my remarks on two key issues related to the chosen theme of rightsizing. My perspective on rightsizing may, however, bear absolutely no relationship to what is called downsizing, or indeed what some of you might have been expecting me to be talking about rightsizing this evening. The first issue I want to talk about is rationale. Why are we doing what we're doing? Informed by the experience gained since we established in 2014, by the COVID-19 pandemic and by the Red Sea poll we commissioned in 2023, Sage organised a workshop of movers and shakers and, some like me, creakers, in early 2024 to help us frame our submission to the Commission on Care. A key issue from that workshop was the need for an informed process of innovation to meet the challenges and opportunities of an ageing society. So reflecting this, we pitched a suggestion for a national social innovation fund related to the challenges of an ageing society to a number of public representatives, including some of them whose names you might not want to hear, but it was in the run-up to the last general election. And we can see fragments of ideas that we pitched in the current programme for government. The rationale for this approach was based on analysis of data from the Irish longitudinal study, TILDA, for a report on the left, I think there, for a consortium of age-based partnerships and national NGOs, which was presented to the National Economic Social Council way back in 2013. The report, Individual Needs, Collective Responses, stated, the purpose of services for older people is to improve well-being, and these services are more likely to be effective if aligned with the known determinants of well-being. Now, the analysis of Tilda data suggested that the largest and most significant direct determinants of personal well-being among older people involve social connections, notably the quality of relationships with partners, children, relatives, and friends, as well as an active participative lifestyle. But on the basis of this analysis, the report suggested that services for older people, as currently funded by the HSE, may not adequately reflect all or even the most important risk and protective factors affecting personal well-being. This in turn invites reflection on the question of whether the right services are being commissioned in all cases, and whether there is a need to create a more innovative stream of commissioning. The rationale for innovation is clear. All actions and initiatives must be judged with regard to the extent to which they align with the known determinants of well-being for older people. But how we approach this is critical. Highly rural Mayo, with considerable numbers of older people living alone, is vastly different to urban Tallaght, so our efforts therefore must be place-based as well as outcome-focused. The second issue I want to focus on is the issue of innovation. I referred earlier to the programme for government. All sorts of things are to be considered, reviewed, progressed, examined, and generally looked at without any sense of how the issues are related and how they will be progressed. A rather frayed spider's web in which some things were caught and some were poorly digested. Just take 3 examples from this slide. The top one, support AHBs in developing and managing senior housing with on-site support services, fostering safe, supportive communities. A second one, increase funding for the National Meals on Wheels network and develop a plan to ensure there are supported providers in every town in the country. And then third one, consider an annual social enterprise empowerment and development allocation, SEED, to unlock the potential of the social enterprise sector. Crawling in there somewhere. The potential role of approved housing bodies in developing and providing support services is recognised, but any serious development of social care supports for older people requires that we think through what is involved, the implications it may have for current models of provision, and how the innovation that will be required to make progress needs to be underpinned by a policy, legislative and resourcing framework which engages with the totality of issues. Consider the second point there, the expansion of Meals on Wheels. If we really are to focus on the well-being of older people, instead of just doing more tomorrow of what we do today, we have to ask, what is the rationale for meals which are collectively prepared being delivered to people who will eat them alone? Wheels need to be organised under people, not just under meals. A car, a meal and a jar, and maybe laundry and a chat with an advanced nurse practitioner in a pub or a sports club, organised by your ever-loving and increasingly innovative approved housing body, springs to mind. But organisations that seek to develop wraparound as opposed to send-around services have to think carefully about how this can happen, particularly in the context of a new statutory home care scheme separate from the existing statutory nursing home support scheme. The market-building approach of private investment in congregated settings such as nursing homes is inevitably being followed by a similar approach in the home care sector. A balance of powers between legislature, executive and judiciary is seen as a cornerstone of our political democracy. Why then should we not talk of a balance of powers in our social democracy? The theme of this evening is rightsizing. So let's talk about how we can right-size the public, private and social enterprise sectors to ensure greater balance of power in the political economy of care, and in the process carve out a space in which innovation can be encouraged in support of outcomes which are desired. When it comes to housing for people as they age, the standard approach is to say we need a spectrum of provision. But if we are to truly have a spectrum of provision, we need a spectrum of providers, including social businesses which are capable of adding value and drawing in a wide range of community assets in a way that neither the private nor indeed the public sectors can. In this context, here are some takeaway points for consideration. There is a need to reassert the public realm in the areas of housing and social care, because the level and nature of private provision based on public funds has become a systemic danger and likely a barrier to future progress. This requires a clear commitment from governments and a strong legislative framework that supports social enterprise and social innovation and addresses the legal and regulatory barriers to people organising their housing and social care needs in a self-directed, cooperative or mutual way. The Law Reform Commission, in its 2024 report on adult safeguarding, made a very strong recommendation for a Social Care Act. The framing of such an act is now a matter of the utmost importance. We cannot simply wish away nursing homes. We need to focus on redesigning care for people who are extremely frail and in the final years of their lives, based on a small-scale household design of buildings and supports, quite unlike those warehouses of care that RTE investigates. The needs of the growing number of people over 85 require new thinking about nursing home care, and we have to consider more subacute, hospice-friendly community hospitals as part of the spectrum of provision. Housing organisations need to act as pathfinders for locally responsive wraparound services, rather than simply accept the one-size-fits-all send-around approach which typifies traditional public services. Approved housing bodies need to become housing, social care organisations, capable of meeting needs across the life cycle that would include rehabilitation, refuge, respite and hospice care. This will have important implications for AHBs, but also for the future role of the HSC, local authorities and many existing voluntary organisations. The nature of regulation must fundamentally change. We can no longer tolerate an approach which says that people under 65 with disabilities will live in small numbers in bungalows, but people over 65 will live in congregated settings with over 100 other people. All regulated and inspected by the same statutory authority. In conclusion, I want to again express my thanks for the opportunity to contribute to this lecture series. It is important that we advance the debate about the policy, systems, resourcing and legislation implications of providing housing, support and care across the life cycle, reflecting all the changing scenes of life. You are on the road. Good luck with the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. There's so much in that, and the appropriate level of challenge that we always expect to hear from you. The better for hearing it, I would suggest. And we're gonna move onto our Q&A now with the audience. And I was hoping to fire about 15 different silly questions to everybody. We're not going to do that. We're going to go straight to the room to keep ourselves on time. So do we have a roaming mic somewhere? We do. So if people could put their hands up and maybe just for the benefit of everybody in the room, introduce yourself and on who you're talking from. And if nobody does put their hand up, then I'm more than willing to ask some silly questions on my own. This is either up and there we go.
Hi. Just a question on the co-living, something I'm interested in. Have you considered co-living for, I know you said 50 plus, and have you considered it, some of the models in Denmark and other places that you refer to, they actually, it's young people and old people all living in the one place. Have you considered that in the model that you're looking at?
I'm mic'd anyway. Sorry. Apologies, I forgot about that. You're right. I mean, co-housing, as we call it, co-housing, because co-living has a bad name. Uh, it didn't used to have, but it does now. So co-housing certainly started as multi-generational communities, and they thrive as well. There's an excellent one in the UK, which was sponsored by the Cambridge local authority called Marmalade Lane. If you ever get a chance to see it, we decided, I suppose, to take a focused niche approach, to focus on 50 plus, for a number of reasons, because I think the other was just too big for us. It would be great if there was somebody else out there sponsoring multi-generational communities. There's quite a difference in experience, and people have reasons why they choose 50 plus communities. Anytime you go there, the grandchildren are always around. It's not that they're sort of not family friendly, but it's just a different way of living amongst people. One of the challenges, and I finish on this, is to ensure a mix of ages in there. So one of the communities I was with in the UK recently, a fantastic one called New Ground, if you ever look it up, it's won all sorts of design competitions. They're now limiting intake to people under 50, because what happened was when they started, they all grew much older together. So a mix of age is important.
No, I was going to ask about the intergenerational thing and the prospect of families living with grandparents, like in separate units in the same state. I think you covered that. The other thing I was wondering about is, have you got any kind of a model of ownership in mind here? It's purely ownership. This isn't about life tenancies and management companies, or how have you kind of got that far? How does that work?
You're hitting on a critical question. The model normally is you own it, you buy the house, 999-year leasehold, which puts in restrictions on the things you can do and onward sales, so that you keep the community piece coherent and sustained. But for us, the issue of inclusivity and diversity is really important. It's important to our members as well. So we're out there looking for a model that would allow us to mix tenure. It may not be for all the communities, but certainly for some of them. And we're looking for a way of solving that. There are problems taking people from housing list. There are problems with the cross rental scheme, because the gap between what is an affordable rent and what is an actual rent needs to be bridged. But all I can say is we are very open to how we can solve that, because that inclusivity and diversity is important, and it is what our members want.
Thank you. We probably have time for another one question. You see there's two hands up there down the far end. Thanks.
And I guess this speaks to Mervyn's point about the spectrum. But in terms of, people moving in, let's say in 50s and 60s, how many of the schemes or what are the options for people when they get into their 80s and 90s in these schemes in terms of living there until end of life, so to speak?
Okay, no, that's a really good question. So typically, people age in place. We know living there extends the period of independent living for all sorts of reasons that research sets out. However, inevitably there comes a time when they do need care and support. So, which is why communities often offer what had been guest accommodation is now available for carers staying overnight, and so one carer can much more helpfully cover maybe 8 houses, giving them care at a time when they want it, not for set half hours, and with the flexibility that they have it when they want it. So that's one option, but there inevitably also are challenges when people become too physically frail, or or their levels of dementia actually becomes an issue, and their family will want them to move into much more high support units. So each community makes these decisions for themselves, and often they can anticipate them to some extent, but they can't always, when the need arises, they respond. But most of them want to be able to keep people living there longer than they might otherwise if they were in their own home.
Thank you. We had one, so right.
No, so I was just going to ask Caroline, just in terms of the spare bedroom that you need in your accommodation, what's your thinking around that, or why is it so important, or?
Well, basically, to have the extra room there is so that if and when Joe comes home, there'll be room there to have care and support there, that they can stay over, because he will need overnight care for the times he is when he's transitioning home. So to have the extra room there is ideal for his needs and his care.
Then we did have one hand up in the far end.
Thank you. My name is Lucy Cunningham. I'm from the Home Share, an intergenerational housing program. Some people, I'm delighted, some people actually asked some really pertinent questions like, having a second bedroom, which is so important, not only for families staying, but in the future, what happens. And I'm just wondering if we work on people, helping people to remain living in their own home by offering accommodation to younger generations who can't afford and can't save for a deposit of their own. I'm just wondering to Clann, Clúid, to any of the housing organisations, is there a cut-off age, or, is there any assessment in terms of cognitive awareness? If somebody does have early stage dementia, I know their surroundings is so important, and if they do move to new surroundings, that could exacerbate any confusion.
It's definitely one of the challenges in terms of some of the nominations that we see coming through from local authorities. I think a lot of those conversations are based on the relationships that our staff build up with the local authorities to have those conversations. And I think sometimes you will see that the care packages don't necessarily arrive in when you hope that they do. It's about early engagement, early conversations, and it's about relationships. Genuinely, that's where we get the most progress, and where we've got really good. The frontline teams invest a lot of time in the relationships with the allocations officer, building up that understanding. Quite often our frontline teams will bring allocations officers out to the schemes in advance as well. That's something that happens regularly across the country. That's to build up that awareness and that sense of understanding for the allocations officer. And most local authorities are more than willing to come out and visit the schemes, spend that time in the schemes to get an understanding themselves, so they could be more thoughtful nominations to us. You're right to raise it, because the impact, especially around that dementia awareness and that how people could be completely discommoded simply by that change of environment. Now, the build design, that's where it comes back in again, including Crann's design guide, speaks to that to make sure that we're not exacerbating any of those issues. But it doesn't change that quite often the move is a fundamental change, considerably impactful on anybody, regardless of the positive aspect of getting the keys.
I'll just briefly comment on that, because I think the idea of people living in or close to where people are, that it brings up different responses from different people. I know some work I'm doing Mayo, a lot of older people kind of didn't want another bedroom because they felt it was family members in the current crisis, family members wanted to stay. The Finns have a saying, visitors are like fish, they go off after a few days. But those things, and these are real concerns. So kind of sofa beds, and particularly as a previous experience, end of life care, where there's temporary accommodation needed, that can be designed in. But there is that need to have a range of extra flexibility in the, if you like, in the project, in the campus, use that phrase. It's for people to stay in. If there's a problem that there might be some security needed, staying overnight. It also might be rooms for, we were asked about one thing, could we get a virtual ward going? So people don't have to go down to the hospital and wait in Castlebar with a huge queue of people. And there have been massive tailbacks since Storm Johan. It hasn't stopped. And so we have to really think about getting the hospital into the home. These things, the embryos of these developments are all there. But we have to think in terms of a range of services being provided on the one side, and that includes dementia-specific accommodation, but also the students. And you can do some of this in a different way in an urban setting like Castlebar. It's a different story out in Belmullet. So that's why it's about place-based, but it's also the innovation. What is going to work here is not going to work over there. There's a different mood among the community or whatever, different ties. So we have to that's why I come back to this thing of innovation. We have to get the statutory services, particularly the local authorities, working on projects which help change their mindsets in the process. I see those people there, and I see some of them being stomped on at times, and I see others really moving ahead. And I'll leave you with one thought. We're engaging with a private developer. He would call himself a developer with a social conscience. I think that's an understatement. But he made a point that he knows, because of his background, a reasonable number of people of considerable wealth. I don't. And he says they're often looking around for projects that they would like to put money into, which would be really interesting and innovative, but they're not seeing them coming forward. And they wouldn't mind a social return on investment of about 2, max 5% once they got the thing turned over. There are, that's the problem that's why I come back to this thing. We've got to get a different view of how we deliver public services, how we deliver work on housing, but it has to be shaped by the local kind of needs. And we just can't continue the way we are. I looked at people, Storm Johan changed an awful lot of things for friends of mine, but it also, people having to cut through 200 meters of trees to get to somebody with dementia, with very, very tired, absolutely worn out carer. Now, the hospital's filled up afterwards, but the number of people now thinking not just about rightsizing, but about actually coming together and clustering, that's beginning to grow. So they're, bit by bit, we'll do it.
Yeah. Thanks, Mervyn. Thank you, everyone. It's pretty much just left for me to say thank you to the panelists for the really thoughtful, rich, and intelligent presentations and the responses to the questions. Before I ask Conal to come up and say a few words and close off for us, the gentleman in the screen behind us is a bit of a hero of mine. Pablo Casals is one of the world's greatest musicians. He's a cellist who continued giving recitals and public performances up to the age of 97. When he was 93, a journalist asked him, "Why do you continue to do so, and why do you continue to practice every single day?" And he said, "Well, I think I'm making progress." I hope I'm not standing here at 93 saying, "Why are you still doing each friendly house?" We're making progress. I think there's going to be progress in this room tonight, incredible progress just by dint to the conversations that have started. And let's continue then outside afterwards. But before we do that, I'm going to ask Conal Husaf, Simon's son, to come up and say a few words on behalf of the Brooke family. Thanks, Conal.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So I have the honour of closing out tonight's event. As Steve said, my name is Conal Husaf. I have my mother's surname, but I doubt you'll dispute that I am indeed Simon's son. the facial hair and my towering stature are a bit of a giveaway. So I'm not a housing policy expert. I work on building electricity infrastructure for EirGrid, the state-owned electricity system operator, as a policy analyst. So in some senses, I took up the family trade. But yeah, on behalf of Simon's family, myself, Anna, my mother, Aoife, my fiance, I really want to thank Clúid for organising tonight, Fiona and the team, for really continuing to push these important lectures in Simon's name. I'd also like to thank Brian, CEO of Clúid, Simon's colleague and friend, for supporting these lectures over the years. As I understand, this will be his last one as CEO of Clúid before he retires soon. Anna and I often remark about how Simon would have scoffed at the idea that he would be honoured in such a way to have a series of lectures named after him. He was deeply committed all his life to housing and wholeheartedly behind the important work of Clúid and Clann. But he was also very modest about his own role, perhaps to a fault. I don't ever recall him being overly interested in personal recognition or accolades, and certainly not if they got in the way of real sort of critical policy discussions. So what I think would have made Simon most proud about tonight and about these annual lectures is that his name is attached to an event of substance that's focused on ideas and really intended to have a positive impact on society. Especially the collaborative and inclusive nature of tonight's discussion was also very much in line with Simon's worldview. He was a real believer in learning from the experience of other people, be they fellow policy practitioners here in Ireland or in another country. And probably even more importantly from housing residents like Caroline, who gave her a really important insights about her and Joe's experience. And at the end of the day, even in the world that I work on of energy policy, it's real people who are impacted by policy. And in the housing sector, this might be even more valid. And so to make these important, well-informed, compassionate, inclusive decisions, it's vital to hear the voices of the people who are at the end of this long chain of policies and budgets and regulations and even lectures. So people-centered thinking, I think, is an approach that came through very strongly from Simon anytime I spoke to him about his work. And the topic that was covered this evening was one that was very important to Simon, maybe at the end of his career with an eye on his own future, which he, of course, sadly did not have the opportunity to fully live out. But I understand that Simon, in fact, commissioned a report back in 2015 on all the people that had a role to play in establishing Clann. And so it's really great to see this being addressed this evening. I mean, there's so much just to sort of, process from what was discussed and so many interesting insights. I think what came through so clearly was those human stories, those personal experiences of how this can really, really change people's lives and suit them throughout their life. And as you said, Steve, at the start, it's about the people behind the front door at the end of the day. And Fiona was actually kind enough to share with me some of Simon's notes from when he was preparing this 2015 report. And he captured the sort of core aim of the work at the time. I'm not going to try and do an impression of his genteel English accent, but can hopefully use your imagination. But he wrote that the aim is to ensure that as far as possible, older tenants can continue to stay in their home for as long as possible, if that's what they want to do. But he also noted that it's clear not everyone would be able to or want to stay in their existing home. And so the second aim should therefore be to help them identify what housing they need and how to move to more appropriate housing. So to my non-expert ear, that sounds like a neat summary of what we discussed. And I think it fits well with the contributions and the comments offered by the previous speakers. So to close, I want to thank all of the speakers for their time and their insights, and everybody who came here tonight to learn about this critical issue. It was really an incredible turnout, and that really is fantastic for us to see Simon's work being celebrated in this way. Even though he probably would have downplayed it himself, we do appreciate it very much. So, Hurra agus Ihua.